Yes, welcome back to the Couples Money Revelation podcast. And today I have a very, very special guest for you, Sara Barco, one of my friends, networking queen, as I call her, and also the owner of True Self Business Consulting. Sara, welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, Brian, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here. I'm excited to do this podcast with you because I watch your podcast and I get a lot of value from it. So it's awesome being on the other side of this. So, yeah, my name is Sara. I am the owner of True Self Consulting Business Relationship Marketing. So, what I do in there is I help my clients provide their customers with the true service that they deserve. I do that in a few different ways, mostly with some strategic areas of the journey, the customer journey. There's 8 phases of a customer journey that I like to highlight and really customize for my clients. Sometimes we work on a little bit EQ, some self-awareness, some social awareness, relationship awareness to identify our clients in that journey. We overcome objections that may be getting in the way of that journey and really work on activating referrals with people that are inside their 4 walls that often get missed as potential customers. And so it is helping them stay on the journey that they're really truly hoping for. I do that, and I also have a networking community, which you're well aware of as a member as well, 52 connections in 52 weeks, where I help business owners, nonprofits, and entrepreneurs have a space, a community where they can have connection-driven networking. It's more non-traditional networking, more connection and conversion that happens naturally from there. So both of those.
Woo! And I can attest it's an amazing networking group, and Sarah's great at what she does as
Happen.
well in the business side. So thank you for coming on. And a little background of what I want to start doing and finding more of is Sara is an entrepreneur and she's married and in a relationship.
Yeah.
And so the Couples Money Revelation podcast is focused mostly on couples, but individuals and business owners too. And I want to start this conversation because one of you is W-2, your husband. One of you is an entrepreneur
Mhm.
running the lifestyle of a business owner. And we all
Yeah.
know the chaotic times that brings sometimes. And I
Right.
wanted to have you on mostly because you volunteered when I asked you to, but no, but I wanted to ask you a few questions and kind of have people hear how it is running. Because I mean, when you're an entrepreneur, your income is chaotic throughout the month. It's not
Yeah.
consistent. It's not a W-2. It's not every other week or every week or once a month. It's
Yeah.
unreliable a little bit. So
Yeah.
I want to hear from you about two or three things. So first, tell us a little bit about struggles you guys had as a couple in general, going through your years of marriage and as you became an entrepreneur, and then the
Mhm.
difficulties of managing like the W-2 versus the entrepreneur job with specific income. Just kind of break into what your thoughts are on all of that and what you've seen over the years.
Yeah. Okay, so if I start to go down a rabbit hole with this, you would redirect me because I have lots of thoughts on this. And when I
No,
saw
no, no, please do. Everyone wants to hear this. I have a lot of business owners that are going to listen to this. I know that for a fact. So,
Okay, good. Well, so it's been a long journey. I have had an entrepreneur mindset for the majority of mine and my husband's marriage. So we've been married 15 years. And
congrats.
I didn't start off as an entrepreneur. So for our first several years of marriage, until like about 6 years ago, I worked at a steady job. I was also a W-2 employee for 12 years. And so we were both on that kind of same wavelength where we had stable income, we had 401ks, we had all the things kind of figured out. And then I kind of had this grand scheme of like doing things completely different and started realizing that I felt like I was meant for more than just sitting in these 4 walls. And so I started developing a business plan. And my husband, I found this with other business owners slash entrepreneur couples, is that we are very opposite of one another, which it seems to be very common. And so he was very skeptical from the start. Like, how are you going to make an income out of this? How is this going to replace your income so fast? What are we going to do? You're not going to have insurance. You're going to have to pay for insurance. All the very good questions, right? That I didn't have all the
Yeah.
answers to, except for, I believe in this. This is going to be amazing and we can do it. So we started off because, he knew who I was and he knew that I was a determined spirit. He believed in that. But we also had a lot of arguments. We had a lot of tension between us sometimes. And especially as I was starting off, and even still now, when you're in that entrepreneur space and you're building clients, it is inconsistent income. It is month by month a lot of the times until you kind of get rolling. And you're kind of at the mercy of when clients pay their invoice sometimes. And, you have that window for payment, things like that. And so he was the one that would pay the bills, was then, is now. And so we would sit down every month and he'd say, well, what do you project is coming in this month? And I would spew off what's coming in, what I projected. He's like, when do you think that's going to be? And I give him dates and he'd say, okay, so maybe 10, 20 days later. I'm like, no, on this date, we'll have it by this date. He's like, no, that doesn't happen. It's going to be like 2-3 weeks later. So I'm not counting it. And I would get really offended that he would kind of push my income off and brush it off. But that was the reality of it, and he would call it inconsistent income. And I would get hurt by that too. But that's what it is.
Let me
it was a
jump.
lot of tension, a lot of back and forth. Yeah.
Let me jump in. Sorry. A lot of back and forth, a lot of tension is what you're gonna say. So you've said that twice. Well, I don't mean to cut into you, but I did want to get a point in here real quick, and then you can continue this awesome story. At least you guys were sitting down and having the conversation. And so what that means is whether your husband was denying it's 10 days, 20 days, because I assume he meant like, oh yeah, clients tell you they'll pay you on this date, but blah, 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 blah. But oftentimes in that same scenario that you have started to discuss with us, people avoid the conversation in general when they feel scared. I was like that a lot in the first year of my business, because the first year you're trying to build a business and just like get your website up and find beta clients, and you have no idea what's going on basically in terms of income. So when I'm sitting down with my wife and she's asking me the same questions, it's like, well, I have this prospect, it should be this, but it probably won't be. And so that's where it's just like everyone gets quiet and they're like, well, if we don't start getting more income over the next few months, like, but they don't talk about it. And so I see that a lot. And I got in that behavior years ago too, where I was getting nervous, kind of like an imposter syndrome. Not really that I wasn't a good coach. I knew that. It's just like, where are all the clients? Or, ooh, this month really sucks. So now I feel the pressure on my husband or wife is like staring down my back, basically saying, get your butt in line here or figure out some more money or something like that. So I just wanted to say that at least you guys sat down and said, hey, this is what it's supposed to be. This is how much it is. A lot of people don't do that. So sorry. Continue. I didn't mean to cut.
No, you're right. You're right. And I think I had to learn that my pride got in the way of a lot of conversations, because I had a high belief system and a high desire to do this great work. And I felt like I was putting in so much time and efforts. And I felt like sometimes he didn't see the efforts because he wasn't out doing the work that I was doing. And sometimes we fight about, well, your job is easier. No, your job is easier. You're at home and you get to do this, or you get to clock in and out and you don't even have to worry about anything else. Like, and wouldn't it be nice to just punch the clock and go home and not stress about your business? So we'd have these arguments that were hitting both of our pride points. And it was a conversation. One night I remember, like, I really needed to humble myself down and be like, you know what? He's not attacking like my belief system and the work that I'm doing in the desire. He's afraid. Like, it comes out of fear. We're both in this fear space of like, how are we going to make sure that our family is taken care of and not go into debt? And I think we were having conversations. However, I don't think for a long time we were both really listening to the other person and having that empathy for their place, where we could come back in that humble space and say, you know what, you're right. I recognize this fear and uncertainty that you're feeling. Let's talk about this. And it wasn't until we got there mostly, and then started doing some work alongside you as well, where we were having conversations, but were we having the goals and the right conversations? So we had to really get intentional with the types of conversations we were having and what we needed to provide to one another so that we could have secure conversations and both feel like we were doing really great work in the desires that we want to be spending our time in. And also providing comfort, like that peace for our partner, that things were going to be okay. So it was a lot of communication, like not sitting down for bills, but in between communication and sharing things that were happening along the journey for
Mhm.
both of us, that it was like, okay, now he can see some more of these things that are happening. So it's not so fear-based.
That's, I mean, you covered everything, but it generated a new question for me and a new conversation that we weren't going to
Okay.
talk about because I just thought about it. So that is valid points, but the last couple years, I feel like with inflation going up, everything is
Yeah.
20%, 30%, 40% more, basically. Groceries, going out to eat, gas,
Yeah.
up and down, feeding your kids, everything like that. I think that you kept saying humble, and I love that word. I've used it in a lot of my social media if people follow me.
Hmm.
Like, it's time to kind of push your pride aside and humble yourself. And what I mean by that is, as entrepreneurs, about,
Uh-huh.
well, I'll use myself. So let's see here. So about 2 Decembers ago, so I don't know, what does that make it? 2022. I kind of just had this vibe with everything was getting more and more expensive that, the first 6 months, 8 months of 2022, that,
Yeah.
my coaching was going well and it's going better and it's going good still, but it's inconsistent, right? In terms of like right now,
Hmm.
I'm sure a lot of us are in the summer
Right.
like slowdown
Yeah.
as we call it, like, oh my God, everyone disappears for the fourth and and it'll pick
Yeah.
up before school and then maybe after school it'll get even better. But what I figured out is with everything going up, I had to make a decision. And my wife gets, promotions and, more money at her W-2 job. But I had to make a decision that like we were getting to the point where it was like, ooh, there's some months where it's like cutting it way too close. And it was because everything was more money. And so
Right.
I decided without my father-in-law that we were going to do taxes. I was going to do taxes. And our office is only
Mhm.
January through April, basically. We're not really a big summer office, but it gave me a
Yeah.
little more income for 3.5 months. And I could still do my coaching plentiful, and it still helped that. And then
Right.
we picked up some bookkeeping now. And so we do a couple bookkeeping clients now. And I'm helping my friend out this year at her office a little bit. It's all about, I had to put my pride aside there because
Everything.
I was like, no, I'm a coach and that's what I'm going to do. But then I had a real wake up when everything started
Yeah.
hitting the fan about a year ago with like used car issues. And then we had AC furnace. And I'm like, whoa, like everybody, not everybody, but people, I've had some conversations where it's like, you got to get a second income. I mean, I don't know if we're so
Yeah.
focused on this is my job, and I'm not saying go work 80 hours a week and have no life, but if you're not
Yeah.
making your bills and you're like, hey, I'm only working 40 hours, I could go pick up a day and a half or a night or two here at this thing, making another couple $100 a week.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess my
Yeah.
question to you was, did you ever feel that early on? Luckily, you started your business like right before COVID and not really near inflation, but I
Yeah.
mean, what would you pitch in terms of that conversation of like people have to make a little bit more income, especially if one or both of them are entrepreneurs, because we have a lot of
Yeah.
talent out there and everything's way more expensive. So some people are killing
Right.
it still in their entrepreneurship, but a lot of us are struggling
Yeah.
and a lot of us are barely keeping our business afloat. So,
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we come from a space too where we homeschool our daughter. Um, we have a son who has some special needs too that we're working through that. And so I strongly believe there are seasons. There are some, and so I find myself and my husband and I have gotten so good at recognizing these seasons because we've been doing this long enough. But in the beginning, when these seasons would happen where things lull and like inflation hits or this starts to summer
mhm.
happens and things slow down,
Yep.
and then also during from like November through January things happen again, so there's like this up and this down and this up, and so we've started recognizing, um what I think has been able to really help us with that is one, like the being humble, the pride, right, being able to like identify when those seasons are going to happen. So kind of what I've done is put a spreadsheet together and I've started tracking the client patterns that I have. When are the clients really active
Mhm.
and when are they not so active and when have I struggled? So I started doing this at year 2 or 3. By year 3 and 4, I really started to notice the pattern. So it takes a little bit to find those sweet spots depending on the work that you're doing. But I was able to see very clearly that in the summer I dip and in the winter I dip. But the spring and fall are really active for me. And so now when I get into that lull in the summer, my husband also, because I shared that tracking with him and we kind of had those revelations together
Yeah.
to say, hey, honey, look, like I know things are low right now, but this is what's going to happen come fall. So let's like wait for this. Now, if I feel like I'm panicking, oh my gosh, I don't have a client this month, like I'm having to do so much more work, he can come alongside me and be like, okay, but wait, remember, like this is the lull, this is the crazy. And so I think it is either having a partner or accountability person to like remind one another there are seasons, and identifying in that tracking not only where those seasons are for your clients, but where are those cutoff points? Like, what do you need to be making each month to support your family? Bare minimum, what do you need to be doing? Where's your middle? Where's your max? Kinds of things like that. I know minimally what I need to be bringing in to make sure that my family is thriving from my standpoint, and he knows his from the W-2 standpoint as well. He knows how many hours he works. He knows what his taxes are coming out. He knows what's coming out for insurance. I know all those things on my end. And so if we hit a bare minimum place where we know summer is going to lull, I can be like, hey, I'm going to be bare minimum for here. However, I do also agree with what you said. Sometimes a second like side hustle, putting your pride aside and being like, yes, I'm a consultant. Yes, I'm a, great, coach and all these things.
Yep.
I can have a side hustle to supplement this income. And that's a great space to be in too, because I've also come to learn that those opportunities can develop into so much more. And so even like I've run social media pages for people, and I've gone in and used my other strengths and gifts that I've been given and my purpose to like, I can take some videos, and I'm not too bad at editing video. So I can use some of those
You might
unique
have to,
strengths
I might have to have you edit this.
Right? I've learned some of
Just
these
play it.
things. So then now if I recognize that, I'm talking to someone and they're like, oh, I need help with this. And if it's something I can help with, that can be some supplementation when my seasons are slow. And I can say, oh, I have some capacity. I'd be willing to help you. I can sidestep with that.
Wow.
I think it's honest conversations with you, the other people around you, and your spouse.
I think two things. You dropped a revelation drop in there. I don't know if you heard it in your voice. You were like, "Oh, my revelation with my husband was," that's part of the money revelation. But also you got it. That's why I went
Good
like
one.
that. I was like,
Good
"All
one.
right, cool, cool, cool." But yeah, everyone's got a talent. You might not realize it,
Yeah.
but I mean, if you sit down and actually just write out some stuff that growing up I was really good at this. I was really good at that.
Yeah.
I bumped it. I drew a blank. Somebody, um, I don't remember. I don't remember, but I had a good example, but I lost it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just, if you can do it, great. I mean, if you
Yeah.
can think of some things that might bring you a little income without driving you to insanity, I mean, that's not such a bad
Yeah.
thing either. Everyone's got a talent that maybe they're just scared to do or scared to start.
Right.
And you
And
never know.
I think speaking of,
What if it takes off? I mean, you never know. So,
and I think we all have a purpose within us to provide value to others. And so there is something in each of us that like if somebody asks and we're able to do something, and that can also, it's a win-win, right? It's a win
mhm.
for them, it's a win for us. I think it's open communication of, hey, I'm in a season of slowness in my business.
Yeah.
I can help you out for this time frame. Next season, my business is going to be on booming again. I may need to slow down a little bit. So it's really honest conversations that you're having all the time, but and tracking, right? Having
I
goals.
Looking to the future, you know this personally, you and your husband, but
Yeah.
I really pitch to my clients and people I talk about is like, you really need to see, like, look 90 days out, 6 months out, 1 year out.
Yeah.
What do you have coming up? You have to start pre-planning for this, because what if you are an entrepreneur and you're like, hey,
Yeah.
summer months are coming, but so and so has to have surgery in a few months. How are we going to save for that?
Yeah.
Start planning a few months ahead instead of
Right.
getting to the summer and saying, oh crap, I don't have any
Yeah.
clients. Now we don't have enough. This has got to get pushed back. This has got to get pushed back, and
Yeah.
everything will just keep going down the domino track, basically. Pre-planning is key.
Yeah. Yeah, and you brought up the point, and you've helped us a lot with this, is thinking of those 60, 90 days out goals. You know that my husband and I were not on the same communication field for a while. We
No,
had different goals with money,
no,
right?
you didn't
He's
have
like,
different. Wait. You guys had very similar goals. The time frame was way off though. Like he
the
was
time frame
saying,
was
I
way
don't
off.
remember what the one was. You were like, yeah, like 1 to 3 years. He's like, I was thinking like 7 to 10 years or something like that.
Yeah, but
It's
those were the
crazy, but that's
conversations.
how couples do it because we don't talk. A lot of us
Yeah,
don't talk. Like, yes,
yeah,
we want to go to this place. Well, how long do you think we can achieve that? I mean, we got to save for it and all that. Someone might say, well, I was hoping in the next year or two. And the other person, well, I think we got more to do than that in 3 to 4 years or something. So,
yeah, yeah. And that was also a revelation. I know I'm using it there, right?
ooh,
That was really great because I
I'm
think
gonna cut this up into little shorts every single time.
I think it was about camping and RVing and traveling. And I
Mm,
was like, oh, I want a camper within, the next year. And he's like, what? I thought it was like 5, 6, 7 years. And I'm like, oh
that
no,
was
like this
it.
is my goal. I'm going to sell all the things in the house. We're gonna, I was
forget
ready to
the
sell a
forget
house in a year.
the forget
Yeah.
so and so's this and forget that we're gonna get a
Yeah.
camper.
But those were the conversations we weren't having. Like we were talking about our bills, we were talking about the money, we were talking about, we were having the difficult conversations of when it's coming and when it's not, but not like our time frames that mattered so much to us.
Yeah.
And that having those conversations got us on the same page. Now our conversations sound a lot different. they're
What?
they're good and peaceful conversations.
Yeah. So you kind of already covered my last question, and I want to keep it timely, so we have 2 minutes to talk about this. No pressure, but you
Yeah.
already kind of covered most of this. Looking back now that you feel a little bit more organized as a couple, and you've gone
Yeah.
through many years of entrepreneurship, what are the key points that you guys think you were missing during the journey? You already covered a lot, but is there
Yeah.
anything else you want to throw in there real quick that you think is relevant for
Yeah,
our
well, one was
listeners?
the coaching. We've never done financial coaching before. And to me, like I remember when my husband and I started talking, he's like, "We don't need a financial coach. Like we can
What was
talk."
his reason, real quick, if you don't mind me
Because
now?
well, one is he just didn't think that like bringing in someone, one I think was pride, like having people dig into our finances and know all the
It's
details,
tough.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Two was like we didn't have everything outlined. So I think again, pride, like we should be more organized if we're going to have a financial advisor. Three, he's like, well, we have all this debt. We have these things that we're paying on. Why would we pay more to have someone come in and coach us? And for
What
me,
to
I
that
saw,
question? Wait, real quick, because all my coaching people need to hear this because that is one of the
yeah,
most common questions. You put me on the hot spot like a month ago. Like 4 other people in our
yeah.
networking group said, "How would you answer that?" If he asked you or told you, if he really said that, like, why would we pay more people? What was your answer?
So
Your
I
answer.
told him
I
what
know what
my
my answer is.
yeah, it's what I did tell him. I'm like, we're never going to be able to afford any of this additional pieces, this additional support, the additional getting out of debt. We're never going to have the extra income if we don't get outside perspective and get some help in doing whatever we're doing, we're not doing right. Because we are like months a month and we're trying to figure it out. So we pay the money now and we end up saving the money later. It's an investment in our financial future. And he didn't have anything to say about that. Like because he wanted the same thing, but he was afraid. And so
Mhm.
it's like, let's it's not forever, right? We're working with Brian for like what, 4 months or how 4 6
Yeah, it was like
how
three
many
months. It was like three
okay.
months.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 months.
And so it was, but I'll tell you, and I've already told you, I'll tell your audience. Gabe came to me after, like, we're not even done yet. We still have another session. And he's like, I'm so glad you introduced me to Brian. This has been
Oh,
so
thank you.
good for us. Yeah. So he has been, it's really, so I think coaching was number one. We needed an outside perspective. We needed someone to sit in between us, basically, and say, I hear you, Sarah. I hear you, Gabe. Like, but let's talk about this. Let's pause, take a breath, and let's dive into this a minute. And just hearing each other's perspectives from sitting in, in the Zoom space or in the room, with you and having you ask those different questions help us think of those things differently. So a coach, an outside perspective, number one, was huge that we didn't have before. We've never done this. Been great. Two is just the communication and listening, really hearing the other person and not being defensive, but being very curious about what that person's saying, because it's someone that loves you and cares for you.
Yep.
And is in a space of uncertainty and fear, especially with everything in the world going on. So coming to that and saying, okay, I understand and I hear where you're at, and like agreeing to hear one another.
Yeah.
And then third, I really think a key thing is having intentional goals. Like, what is the minimum? Where, what do we need to put away? Thinking of those 30, 60, 90 days. What do we have coming up? Here's the minimum we need. Here's the, what we like. That's been a game changer, because we are in like planning mode for so many things.
Yep.
And we don't have to have it all. We're just like little here, little here, little here. And it's so much more manageable for us. I don't feel stressed out if I don't have a client in my slow season, because I know we've been working on it and we've got each other now. So those are probably my three.
All right, two things before I let you tell the people how to find you. One, everybody, including my coaching people that hear this, I did not give her talking points on that question earlier. She nailed that all. That was all by herself, just so everyone knows. I didn't line her up and say, hey, this is the question I'm going to ask you about financial coaching. She just did that all on her own and nailed it. So that. And two, you warned me before coaching. You said, hey, and if Gabe hears this, it's totally cool. I hope he knows this. But she wrote me an email like the week before we started and said, hey, Gabe's a little bit stubborn. He's going to need some convincing because of A, B, and C, kind of like you talked about.
Yeah.
And so you gave me that heads up. And you know what? After the first half hour of our first call, I saw him laughing and smiling, and it all went fine from there. So he was very, he was very willing to loosen up. Well, yeah, because it's nobody wants to talk to anybody about their money. That's the most private thing in the world, other than their relationship, And so I totally get it. So it's a very difficult thing. But thank you for the kind words and for what you just discussed. It'll be very helpful for people, entrepreneurs. Awesome. So before we go, thank you for coming on. But also, how can people? I'll drop this all in like the comments and everything. How can people get a hold of you? Check out your website, join 52 Connections, and drop my name so I get a referral. No, I'm just playing.
Right. Brian's gonna get free lunch every month.
Yeah.
I would love people to connect about if you're in a spot, if you're an entrepreneur and you're in that position where you go through seasons and you're up and down, I would love to help you find a community that has got your back and wants to advocate for you and help you stay plugged in, so that your level income can stay consistent and you have less stress because you have a community around you. 52 Connections is an amazing, engaged community. We're excited about connections. Brian can share the links. You can go to 52connections.com to find that. What happens is you get on a wait list. Every member is vetted in. So we have a conversation about your networking goals, your styles, make sure that you're all about connecting, not just about transactions. And then there's an application that's free to fill out. We go from there and boom, you become an amazing member.
Awesome.
For consulting, if you have a team that is looking to engage with your customers, that wants to keep your customers on a journey and not to lose your customers, keep them advocates for life, I'd love to talk to you about some team coaching ideas and consulting to boost your customer morale and keep your customers going for life of your company with you too. So you can find me there at trueselfbrm.com.
Awesome. I will drop those in the link. Thank you again, Sarah, for coming on. And for everybody listening and tuning in on video, until next time, stay blessed, stay positive, and we'll see you soon.